everybody, Aaron here from the Cool Guys Nation, and welcome to part 2 of our Space Marine Codex review. Today we're going to be looking at our troop choices, the Tactical Squad and the Scout Squad, as well as some of the vehicles that I find more interesting. So right now we are going to start with our Tactical Squad, and pretty much it's exactly the same. Point cost is 70, 4 Space Marines, 1 Space Marine Sergeant. You can upgrade a Veteran Sergeant for pretty much the same point cost, 10 points. There's really not a lot of difference between the old Tactical Marines and the new Tactical Marines. That's a little sad. I was hoping that they were going to get a general point reduction. Now, of course, if you take them with the formation that allows you to take free vehicles and whatnot, then obviously it gives you an advantage. But if you're going to go unbound or you're not going to use that formation, then your Tac Marines are essentially exactly the same, except there is 2 differences that I could find right off the bat. 1, the Teleport Homer went from 10 points to 5. That's actually pretty important because there's a lot of games where I've chosen not to take a Teleport Homer because I thought it was just too expensive. Like 10 points is a lot of points. Now that it's only 5, I'm okay with throwing some Teleport Homers. The problem is, if you have 1 Teleport Homer that's really expensive and that unit gets killed before something can deep strike next to it, then it's not very useful. Now that I can take 2 Teleport Homers in 2 separate squads for the same point cost as it used to be, 5 times 2 is 10, the old one cost 10, that makes it a lot more versatile, a lot more useful, and will allow a lot more tactics on the board. So even though it doesn't seem like that big of a change, I think it's actually very important in terms of tactics on the battlefield. Other than that, the only other major change is that tactical squads can now take a grav cannon as a heavy support choice, and that's 35 points. But if you're getting a free Rhino, and you can take those points that you would have normally spent on the Rhino and put it to something else in the squad, then essentially you can upgrade your Sergeant, you could give him a better weapon, and you could give your heavy guy the grav cannon. That makes your squad overall a lot more powerful. So, that has been Tactical Squads out of the new book. Next, I'm going to look at Scouts. Okay, the next squad that we're going to be looking at is the Scout Squad. And the Scout Squad has gotten a pretty big upgrade that is a long time coming and makes a lot of sense. The ballistic skill of the basic Scout profile has been changed from 3 to 4. So it's just like every other Space Marine on the battlefield, and truthfully, that makes a lot of sense. Why would you have snipers with a worse ballistic skill than your normal infantry? If anything, they should have a better ballistic skill. That being said, everything else on the Scouts is pretty much exactly the same except for the Teleport Homer. It is also 5 points instead of 10, which again is nice because, I think the Teleport Homer being the same price as an upgrade as the Sergeant at 10 points was just too expensive. It makes it a lot more useful. However, there is a really big drawback to Scouts, and that is for your Battle Demi Company, they do not count as a troop choice because the Battle Demi Company says Tactical Marines only. It does not say 0 to 3 troops, it says 0 to 3 Tactical Marines. I don't even think Scouts as regular Scouts are listed in that company. I think that Scout bikes are, maybe. I'm not sure, but the point is that regular Scouts definitely are not, and that means you cannot get a free Landspeeder Storm, and it also means that they're not technically part of the company unless you add one of the other formations into it. But I don't know. I've seen a lot of games where people play the Scouts the way you would expect them, where they have 1 or 2 squads of Scouts. I really like Scouts. I think that they're a fantastic unit. I think they're a viable unit as your core choice, and I wish that it was 0 to 3 Scouts or Tac Marines. I understand that, you can cheap out on the Scouts to get more points into your heavies, but they have a 4+ armor save, so, I don't know. I really like Scouts. I'm really happy that their ballistic skill has been raised by 1, but other than that, they're pretty much exactly the same, but they're not being included in the Battle Demi Company might make them a little bit more difficult to field. Alright, now we're going to take a look at Landspeeders. Landspeeders are one of my favorite units from the Space Marine faction. I use them a lot, and they have had some pretty significant changes. For one, they're cheaper. They went from 50 points to 45 points, and on top of that, they got an additional special rule called Anti-Grav Upwash, which allows for an extra 6 inches of movement when they're moving flat out. And that's really important because I don't think Landspeeders were actually maneuverable enough. I think that they would get bogged down and they would get stuck, so this is a really big deal. On top of that, they've changed the points for pretty much every weapon that you can put on it, and in all cases but one, they've lowered it. So if you want to add a heavy bolter or another heavy flamer, that has gone from 10 points to 5. If you want to add a multi-melta, that's gone from 20 down to 15. If you want to add an assault cannon, that's gone from 30 points to 20 points. That's amazing. So if before you took a squad of 3 Landspeeders at 50 points each, now at 45 points, you're going to have 15 free points to spend, which means you can pretty much get a free multi-melta. That's awesome. The only thing that hasn't changed is the cost of the Typhoon missile launcher, which is still 25 points and was 25 points before. However, with the actual point reduction of the Landspeeders themselves, if you want to take the Typhoon missile launcher, essentially you're paying 5 points less for it, but in the other cases you're paying 10 points less. Other than that, it's still a fast skimmer. It still has ballistic skill 4, front, side, and rear armor of 10, and an HP of 2. Overall, fantastic new stats for the Landspeeders. I think they're going to be a lot more viable on the battlefield. All right, now let's take a look at the Whirlwinds. The Whirlwinds are exactly the same in terms of their ballistic skill, their armor, their vehicle type, their weapons, and their equipment. The big difference is they now have a special rule, once again, for when you have 3 of them in the same unit, and it's called suppressive bombardment, and that gives them pinning and shred. Fantastic. Fantastic. You now have shred on your blast. That's amazing. On top of that, there is a super cool formation where you can take the Whirlwinds in combination with a Landspeeder, and it's pretty cool. It is called the Suppression Force. It's 1 unit of Whirlwinds, which remember can be up to 3, and 1 unit of Landspeeders, which can also be up to 3. And what it does is pretty awesome. It has something called data link telemetry. And pretty much, 1 Landspeeder from this formation can nominate an enemy unit within 18 inches and line of sight in its shooting phase. It can do this in the same turn it moves flat out. Until the end of the phase, all shooting attacks made with the Whirlwind multiple missile launchers by models in this formation against the nominated unit can re-roll to hit and are treated as having infinite range. So if you take this formation, which is really not that expensive because it's 45 points for a Landspeeder, it's 65 points for a Whirlwind, so that's 110 points right there. It's not a lot. Then your Whirlwind not only gets shred and pinning, but it also gets to re-roll to hit. That's pretty cool. So that is another really big change. And of course, you know, I wasn't going to talk about any of the other formations, but this formation plays really well with the new changes to the Whirlwind and that extra thing. So if you take 3 Whirlwinds and 1 Landspeeder, you're going to blow stuff up. That's all there is to it. You are going to blow stuff up, you are going to hit, and you are going to wound, and that'll be that. So that's an amazing change. Now let's talk about the Vindicators. The Vindicators are awesome. So once again, you can take 3 in a unit. Once you take 3, you get something called line breaker bombardment. And essentially that is, all 3 of them can choose to make 1 shot that is a large blast to an apocalyptic blast. So essentially, you get to shoot an apocalyptic blast that gains the ignore cover special rule. First turn annihilation. That's incredible. You got 3 of these, you got first turn, boom, apocalyptic blast, ignoring cover. That's amazing. I mean, that's just fantastic. Now, granted, you have to have all 3. It's going to be a big target. If you don't get the first turn and you lose one, I mean, still. The other good news is that they had a point reduction. So they went from 125 points to 120 points, but, and this is a big but, you lost your Stormbolter. That is a problem, because now, if you get weapon destroyed, the only weapon is your Demolisher Cannon. And you can't buy a Stormbolter. You can't put a Stormbolter back onto it. So that's kind of sad. But I suppose if you get a weapon destroyed and technically the vehicle is not destroyed and you still have 3 of them, you can still use your line breaker bombardment. So that's awesome. It doesn't actually require all 3 of them to have the weapon. I think it just requires them to be alive. Let's see. Nope, that's wrong. That's totally wrong. If this unit contains 3 Vindicators that can all fire their Demolisher cannons, the squadron can fire a single Linebreaker bombardment instead of firing normally. To do so, nominate one model in the squadron as the firer. The firer's Demolisher cannon changes its type from Large Blast to Apocalyptic Blast and gains Ignore Cover special rule. So, yeah. So I get it. You know what I mean? They took the Stormbolter off so that it's a little bit easier to prevent the Linebreaker bombardment, but that is still really awesome. Taking 3 of them, you are going to save 15 points from 4, but it's expensive. You know what I mean? It's expensive, and you only have to have one of them get blown up. So, kind of a problem. Ballistic skill 4, front, side, rear, 13, 11, 10, hull points 3. Everything else is pretty much the same. But come on, Apocalyptic Blast off of your Vindicators. That's gonna be an amazing turn 1. People are gonna freak out when you drop that on them. So buy some Vindicators, everybody. You're gonna want them. All right, next we're gonna look at the Hunter and the Stalker. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I have one of each of these, but I've never actually put them on the battlefield. I don't know. I mean, there just aren't a lot of games where I was going up against flyers and that I really thought I needed to blow something out of the sky. I suppose flying monstrous creatures is something that, you know, I probably could have used help with in the past, but I think with the change that they made to the Hunter, it's going to be a viable unit now, especially if you know you're going to go up against some serious air. So it's the same point cost, 70 to 70. It's the same stats, 4, 12, 12, 10, with 3 hull points. Again, you can take 3, and if you have 3, you get a special rule. And in this one, it is called Savant Interlocution, and what it does is it allows you to re-roll your Savant Lock special rule. So that's nice, because if you miss, then you still have a chance of hitting, and you get to roll it twice, so you get 2 5+s in order to see if you can do damage to the flyer on the next turn. That's really nice. I mean, that makes it a lot more useful. Also, because you're taking 3, you're going to have a lot more shots instead of taking 1. But again, you know, it's a lot of points, and I think it's still a unit that you pretty much are going to use if you know that you're going against, like, the Flying Circus or, I don't know, Necrons with 2 giant monoliths, or, I don't know. It's hard to take this unit when you don't know what your opponent is going to be playing. If you're playing a really big game, you know, 3,000, 4,000 points, or an apocalyptic game, then yeah, you definitely want to have some of them. But if you're playing 1,500 points or 2,000 points, I don't know. I'm not sure it's really going to pay for itself, especially if you have to buy 3. So next we're going to look at the Stalker. And again, the Stalker's base stats are essentially the same, 75 points. BS4, front, side, rear, 12, 12, 10, hull points 3. And if you have 3, then you get a special rule. And the special rule in this one is called Skystorm. While this unit includes 3 Stalkers, each model's Icarus Storm Cannon array has the Ignore Cover special rule. That's pretty cool. I mean, Ignore Cover is really awesome. So let's just really quickly make sure that the Icarus Storm Cannon, single target, linked, 7-4, Storm Cannon, 7-4. Oh, it looks like it's actually the gun itself has been changed. So it's now range 48, strength 7, AP 4, heavy 3, interceptor, Skyfire. And before it was single target, strength 7, AP 4, heavy, Skyfire, twin linked, dual targets, strength 7, AP 4, 40-inch, heavy, servo tracking, Skyfire. So they have changed the gun a little bit, and I don't know. I don't know. Essentially, it gets to, if you have 3 of them, you ignore Jink, right? That's fantastic, because that's like 90% of the way that flyers get away. You either miss or they Jink. And when you're going against something that has, you know, a 3+ Jink or 2+ Jink or something, that's kind of important. The AP is only 4, but strength 7, you know, it's good. It's good. I like the Stalker. I like this change. Ignoring cover with Jink is a big deal. So that's all the vehicles that we're going to take a look at today. Next time, we're going to take a look at the Dreadnoughts and HQ choices, and then we're going to summarize with an overall weapons look. Now, behind me is a limited edition book right here. I'm also going to be doing a unboxing of this book, which you can look forward to. I'll probably get that out, I don't know, sometime soon after you see this video. But until next time, it's been Aaron with the Cool Guys Nation.